Top Tips on Lesson Planning Part 2, Teacher Support Series. Planning lessons can be time-consuming and stressful, even for an experienced teacher. We know everyone has their own style, but we hope these tips will help save time and help you deliver outstanding lessons. Tip 6. The objective. Behind every great lesson is a strong learning objective. Before you start, it's important to think about the broader sequence of your lessons and where the learning objective fits in to make sure you're on track. Some teachers plan out their learning objectives for a whole topic at the same time, so they can easily ensure they are moving their class through the learning without missing anything or duplicating activities. To make sure it's achievable, try making sure it's smart. Specific, for example, recognize properties of 2D shapes and be able to describe them. Measurable, for example, be able to correctly describe shapes from a group activity, which is reinforced with a homework activity. Achievable, for example, builds on prior knowledge and can be achieved in the lesson. Realistic, for example, includes differentiation and extension activities to support all pupils. And time-bound, for example, be able to learn the descriptive terms and apply them in this hour. Tip 7. Think backwards. Where will your students end up? This can be very useful, as some teachers may have a tendency to get carried away planning ideas, then realize that the outcome isn't quite the same as the learning objective. This can be a good way to stay focused. Tip 8. Question control. When planning your lesson, it can be useful to think about what kinds of questions will be productive for discussion and what questions might sidetrack the class, especially if there's some prior knowledge or possible misconceptions. It's important to try to strike a balance between discussion and meeting your learning objective, as it's easy to get distracted by a discussion that moves you away from what you're trying to achieve. Tip 9. Resources. There are so many sites to find resources, and they can be such a time saver. However, if you're making or adapting your own, it can be useful to stick to the rule that the time spent on them should be no more than half of the time they'll be used for in the lesson. Tip 10. Timing and pacing control. It is very easy, especially if you're still relatively new to a class, to under or overestimate how long your pupils will need to process instructions or finish an activity. It is a good idea to break your lesson down even further into 2 or 3 mini lessons to help you and your class stay focused. Remember to always be reflective. Your plan will not work all the time, but by being reflective, you can gain valuable information and make changes for future lessons. It is also a great way to help you keep track of those plans and techniques that do work. Some questions you can ask yourself: what worked? Was it the way to introduce things? Was the activity really engaging? As a teacher, it's easy to focus on the negatives, so make sure you give yourself a pat on the back and use the information you have gathered to improve in the future.